The notification popped up on my phone at 2:47 a.m. from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Diane Mercer? This is Lauren. We need to talk about Garrett. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. Lauren, Garrett's new wife. The woman he'd married 6 months after our divorce was finalized. The one he'd sworn meant nothing during our marriage counseling sessions. The colleague who was just a friend. My finger hovered over the delete button. 3 years of therapy had taught me that engaging with anything related to Garrett was like touching a hot stove, painful and pointless. But something in that message, the urgency of it arriving in the middle of the night, made me pause. Another message appeared. Please, I found something. He's been lying about you. About everything. I sat up in bed, my silk sheets pooling around my waist. The penthouse apartment was silent except for the soft hum of the city 23 floors below. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Los Angeles glittered like scattered diamonds, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in its towers. My thumbs moved across the screen before my rational mind could intervene. What did you find? The 3 dots indicating she was typing appeared immediately. She'd been waiting for my response, probably staring at her phone just as I was now. A second phone, hidden in his car. Text messages, emails, recordings. Diane, he's been recording conversations with you. With his lawyers, with me. There are files labeled with dates going back 5 years. 5 years. That would have been 2 years before our divorce, right around the time I'd started noticing the changes in Garrett. The late nights at the office, the defensive responses to simple questions, the way he'd started treating me like I was fragile, unstable, someone who needed to be managed rather than partnered with. Can we meet? Lauren's message continued. I know this is insane. I know you have every reason to tell me to go to hell. But I think we're both in danger. Danger. The word sent ice through my veins. I thought about the Garrett I'd married 10 years ago, the charming architect who'd swept me off my feet at a gallery opening. I'd been a junior curator then, just starting to make my mark in the Los Angeles art world. He'd been confident, successful, attentive. He'd made me feel seen in ways no one else ever had. The Garrett I'd divorced 3 years ago had been someone else entirely. Cold, calculated, and worst of all, convincing. By the end, he'd had our friends, our couple's therapist, even my own mother questioning my perception of reality. The term gaslighting had been thrown around, but Garrett was too smart for anything so obvious. He'd been subtle, surgical in his manipulations. Denny's on Sunset. 4 a.m., I typed back. Public, open all night, witnesses everywhere. Thank you, came her immediate response. I'm scared to be in the house with him. He thinks I'm asleep. I looked at the clock. Just over an hour. I threw back my covers and headed for my walk-in closet, my mind already racing through possibilities. What could Garrett possibly have on those phones? And why would he keep recordings of our private conversations? As I dressed in jeans and a sweater, I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror. At 38, I looked different than I had during my marriage. My dark hair was shorter now, cut in a sharp bob that grazed my shoulders. I'd lost the perpetually exhausted look that had haunted my eyes during those final years with Garrett. 3 years of freedom had given me back something I'd thought was lost forever. Myself. But looking at my reflection now, I saw something else creeping back in. Fear. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts, stopping at a name I hadn't called in months. Detective Sarah Chen had worked my case 3 years ago when I'd tried to file a report about Garrett's behavior. Nothing had come of it. Garrett had been too careful, too smart. There was no evidence of physical abuse, no threats that could be proven. Just a woman falling apart and a concerned husband trying to hold things together. That's how he'd made it look. Sarah had believed me, though. She'd given me her personal number and told me to call if anything changed. I sent her a quick text explaining the situation. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, like this video. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Then headed for the door. My building's parking garage was nearly empty at this hour. My Tesla sat under a bright LED light, and I made a point of checking the back seat before getting in. Paranoid? Maybe. But Garrett had taught me that paranoia wasn't always irrational. The drive to Denny's took 20 minutes through empty streets. Los Angeles at night was a different creature, stripped of its daytime chaos, revealing the bones of the city underneath. I'd always loved these quiet hours, the sense that I was moving through a secret version of the world. I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a booth in the back corner with a clear view of both entrances. The late-night waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and tired feet, brought me coffee without being asked. "Rough night?" she asked, her voice carrying that particular gentleness that service workers develop after years of witnessing human drama. "Getting there?" I replied, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. At exactly 4 a.m., a woman walked through the door, and I knew immediately it was Lauren. She looked younger than I'd expected, 28, maybe 30. Blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup, wearing yoga pants and an oversized UCLA sweatshirt. Her eyes were red-rimmed and darted around the restaurant before landing on me. I raised my hand slightly, and she hurried over, clutching a large purse against her chest like a shield. "Diane?" she whispered, sliding into the booth across from me. "Lauren." I studied her face, looking for signs of the woman who'd helped destroy my marriage. Instead, I saw terror. "I'm sorry," she blurted out immediately.
"I'm so sorry for everything."
"I didn't know. I mean, I knew you existed, but he said—" She stopped, pressing her shaking hands flat on the table. "He said you were mentally ill, that you'd had a breakdown, that you'd made up stories about him to avoid taking responsibility for your own issues." I took a slow sip of coffee, letting her words settle. This wasn't news. I knew what Garrett had told people. I'd heard it all during the divorce proceedings, whispered in the hallways of the courthouse, implied in the careful way mutual friends had started treating me. "And you believed him?" I said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. "God help me, yes. He was so convincing. And he seemed so patient with you, so concerned. He showed me emails you'd sent, texts that seemed erratic. He played me recordings of arguments where you sounded irrational, accusatory." My grip tightened on the mug. "Recordings." "Yes." Lauren reached into her purse and pulled out a smartphone, not an iPhone like everyone in LA seemed to carry, but an older Android device with a cracked screen. "This is the phone I found tonight. It was in a hidden compartment in his car, the one he had custom installed. I only found it because I dropped my keys under the seat and felt this little latch." She pushed the phone across the table. I stared at it like it might explode. "There are apps on here I've never seen before," Lauren continued, her words tumbling out faster now. "Recording apps, location trackers, something called Conversation Archive that has hundreds of files. Some are labeled with your name, some with mine, some with other women's names I don't recognize. Other women, of course. Have you listened to them?" I asked. "Some." Lauren wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "The ones with my name are recordings of our private conversations. Things I told him in confidence, in bed, when I thought we were connecting. But when I listened to them, I could hear him steering me, leading me to say specific things, like he was building a case against me. I knew that feeling. The slow, creeping realization that conversations you thought were intimate had been performances. That the person you trusted most was actually your prosecutor, collecting evidence for a trial you didn't know was happening. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Why not just leave him?" Lauren's laugh was bitter and sharp. "I tried. 3 months ago, I told him I wanted couples counseling. I'd started noticing things, the way he'd twist my words, make me doubt my own memory. Small things at first. But when I suggested therapy, he agreed immediately. Too immediately. Like he'd been waiting for it. "Let me guess," I said, my stomach nodding. The therapist took his side. "Every single session." Lauren's hands were shaking again. "Dr. Morrison. He made me feel like I was the problem. like my trust issues and anxiety were damaging the marriage. Garrett was always so reasonable, so concerned. And I started to believe them. Started to think maybe I was losing it. Dr. Morrison, the same therapist Garrett and I had seen, the same man who'd written a letter for Garrett's divorce attorney, expressing concerns about my mental stability and suggesting I was projecting my own issues onto my husband. I'd tried to file a complaint against Dr. Morrison after the divorce, but the California Board of Psychology had found no evidence of misconduct. Garrett had been so careful, so thorough. He always was. When did you start to doubt? I asked. 2 weeks ago? Lauren pulled out her own phone and opened her photos. I found this in his office at home. She showed me a picture of a leather journal, opened to a page covered in Garrett's precise handwriting. I leaned forward, reading the notes. Lauren, week 8. Successfully planted seeds of doubt about her mother's intentions. She now questions family relationships. Progress, excellent. Next phase, isolation from college friends. Suggested vacation during Maya's wedding. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't just manipulation. It was documented, premeditated, systematic. There are pages and pages like this, Lauren whispered, going back years. Some of them about you. Show me. She scrolled back through her photos, stopping on an earlier entry. Garrett's handwriting again. Diane, week 34. Increased pressure tactics working. She second-guesses herself constantly now. Suggested she might need medication. Dr. M has agreed to recommend evaluation. Financial isolation nearly complete. She no longer checks joint accounts. Ready for phase 3. I read it 3 times, my hands trembling. Seeing it written out like that, clinical and calculated, was different from just knowing it had happened. This was proof. This was evidence that my reality hadn't been distorted. His had been manufactured. There's more, Lauren said quietly. A lot more. And it's not just us. She pulled up another document, this one a spreadsheet. I recognized it immediately as an Excel file. The columns were labeled name, age, profession, timeline, status, notes. I counted 12 rows. 12 women. I was number 7. Lauren was number 12. Jesus Christ, I breathed. Some of these names I recognized, Lauren said. I looked them up online, found their social media. 3 of them had restraining orders against him that mysteriously got dropped. 2 of them moved out of state. One of them, she paused, her voice breaking. One of them attempted suicide 4 years ago. She survived, but I found articles about it. Her family said she'd been in an abusive relationship but never pressed charges. I felt sick. All these years I'd thought I was alone. Thought maybe I had been unstable. Maybe I had imagined the worst of it. Even after therapy, even after rebuilding my life, there had been a small voice whispering that perhaps Garrett had been right about me. Why? I asked. Why would he do this? I think it's a game to him, Lauren said. There are notes in his journal about testing variables and refining techniques. It's like we were experiments. Like he was perfecting a method. A cold realization washed over me. He's writing a book. Lauren's eyes widened. What? During our marriage, he mentioned wanting to write a book about psychology and manipulation. He said it was just academic interest, but he interviewed me constantly about my thought processes, my emotional responses. I thought he was trying to understand me, but he was collecting data. There's a file on this phone, Lauren said slowly, labeled manuscript notes. I haven't opened it yet. Do it. She navigated to the file and opened it. We both leaned over the phone, reading in the harsh light of the Denny's overhead fluorescents. Chapter 7. The Art of Emotional Architecture. The key to successful psychological manipulation isn't force, it's construction. You don't break someone down. You rebuild them according to your specifications. The subject must believe every thought, every doubt, every fear is their own organic conclusion. In this chapter, I detail the 3-phase approach that has proven most effective across multiple case studies. I sat back, my mind reeling. Case studies. He called us case studies. We have to go to the police, Lauren said. This is evidence of, I don't know, psychological abuse, fraud, something. I thought about Detective Chen, about the look of frustration on her face 3 years ago when she'd told me there wasn't enough evidence to pursue charges, about how Garrett had smiled confidently in every legal proceeding, how his expensive lawyers had painted me as a vindictive ex-wife trying to ruin a good man's reputation. They won't do anything, I said. Trust me, I've tried. Emotional abuse is nearly impossible to prosecute in California. And Garrett will have explanations for everything. He always does. Then what do we do? Lauren's voice cracked with desperation. I can't go back to that house. I can't pretend everything is normal. And if he finds out I have this phone... She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. We both knew that Garrett's carefully controlled facade only worked when he was in control. If he felt threatened, if he knew his secrets were exposed, there was no telling what he might do. I pulled out my own phone and texted Detective Chen again. It's urgent. Evidence of multiple victims. Need to talk ASAP. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? I asked Lauren. My sister's place in Pasadena, but Garrett knows where she lives. He has tracking apps on my phone. I'm sure of it. Then leave your phone here, I said. Use mine to call your sister. Tell her to pick you up from a different location and not to tell anyone where you're going. Not your parents, not mutual friends, no one. Lauren nodded, taking my phone with shaking hands. As she stepped away to make the call, I picked up Garrett's secret phone and began scrolling through the files. Each one I opened revealed another layer of his methodical cruelty. There were audio recordings of me crying during arguments, but when I listened closely, I could hear how he'd edited them. My responses to his accusations had been cut out, leaving only my emotional reactions. Anyone listening would think I was unstable, volatile, irrational. There were screenshots of text messages I'd sent, but the context had been removed. A message where I'd written, "I can't do this anymore," looked suicidal without the previous text showing I was talking about doing his mother's birthday party. There were emails to friends where I'd expressed doubts about the marriage, but Garrett had highlighted only the parts that made me sound paranoid and jealous, cutting out the specific incidents I'd described. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, a carefully curated false narrative that would convince anyone I was exactly what he claimed, an unstable woman who couldn't be trusted, but now we had the raw materials. The unedited recordings, the journal entries, the spreadsheet of victims. This wasn't just evidence of what he'd done to us. It was evidence of premeditation, of pattern, of intent. My phone buzzed with a response from Detective Chen. I'm off duty, but I'll meet you at the station at 8 a.m. Bring everything. Don't go home. Don't contact him, Lauren returned, her face pale but determined. My sister is coming. She'll be here in 40 minutes. Good. I gestured to the booth. Sit down. We need to make a plan. Over the next 30 minutes, we made copies of everything on Garrett's phone. I uploaded files to a secure cloud storage account, emailed copies to my personal attorney, and sent encrypted backups to 3 different email addresses. If Garrett somehow got this phone back, the evidence would still exist. Lauren watched me work, her expression shifting from fear to something harder. You've thought about this before. For 3 years, I admitted. I knew someday the truth would come out. I just didn't know it would be like this. A beat-up Honda Civic pulled into the parking lot, and Lauren tensed. That's my sister. I handed her my phone. Keep this. I'll get a new one tomorrow. Don't turn on your old phone. Don't access any of your accounts from it. Assume Garrett can see everything on your devices. What about you? Lauren asked. What if he comes after you? I thought about my penthouse with its security system, my doorman who knew not to let anyone up without confirmation, my carefully rebuilt life with its walls and boundaries. But I also thought about Garrett's journal entries, his cold calculations, his systematic approach to destruction. I'll be ready, I said. Lauren grabbed my hand across the table. Thank you. I'm so sorry for not believing you. I'm sorry for being part of what he did to you. I squeezed her hand back. You didn't know. That's what he does. He makes you an accomplice to your own destruction. But you got out. That's what matters. She nodded. grabbing Garrett's phone and her purse. At the door, she turned back one more time. "Be careful, Diane. I read some of his notes about you. He's still obsessed. Whatever he's planning, it's not finished." Then she was gone, disappearing into her sister's car and into the night. I sat alone in the booth, watching the sky begin to lighten outside the windows. Somewhere across the city, Garrett was probably waking up, rolling over to find his wife's side of the bed empty. Soon he'd search for her. Soon he'd discover the phone was missing, and then what? I ordered another coffee and opened my laptop, pulling up every file I'd saved from Garrett's phone. If we were going to take him down, we needed more than just evidence. We needed a strategy. We needed to understand his patterns, his methods, his weaknesses. For 3 years, I'd been recovering from what Garrett had done to me. Now it was time to go on the offense. The waitress refilled my coffee and noticed my intense focus on the screen. "Whatever you're working on, honey, it looks serious." "It is," I replied, not looking up. "I'm building a case. Legal case?" she asked. I thought about Garrett's journal, his spreadsheet, his 12 victims. I thought about the 3 years I'd spent doubting myself, the relationships I'd lost, the career opportunities I'd passed up because I was too broken to function. "Something like that," I said. As the sun rose over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I began to see the shape of what needed to happen. Garrett had spent years building a structure of lies, a carefully constructed false reality designed to destroy lives. Now we would dismantle it, piece by piece, until there was nowhere left for him to hide. My phone, Lauren's phone now, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My heart stopped for a moment before I realized it couldn't be Garrett. He didn't have this number. I opened the message. "This is Sarah Chen. Got your texts. Already started making calls. Found something interesting. 2 of the names you sent are connected to cold cases I worked 6 years ago. Complaints that went nowhere. We need to talk. Now." I typed back. "Denny's on Sunset. I'll be here." 20 minutes later, Detective Chen walked through the door, still in jeans and a sweatshirt, her badge clipped to her belt. She looked exactly as I remembered. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor, the kind of cop who actually gave a damn. She slid into the booth and didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Show me everything." I spent the next hour walking her through every file, every recording, every entry in Garrett's journal. I watched her face harden with each new piece of evidence, her jaw tightening as she realized the scope of what we were dealing with. "This son of a bitch," she muttered, scrolling through the spreadsheet of names. "I knew there was something wrong with your case." I knew it, but he was so clean, so careful. Every time I tried to dig deeper, I hit walls. Lawyers, confidentiality agreements, witnesses who suddenly couldn't remember details. "He's had practice," I said. 12 victims that we know of. Probably more. Chen looked up at me and I saw something dangerous in her eyes. "You know I can't officially do anything with this yet. We need to build a case, get statements from the other victims, verify everything. That takes time. How much time? Weeks, maybe months if his lawyers get involved." I felt my stomach sink. "He'll destroy evidence. He'll manipulate the other victims, convince them not to talk. By the time you have a case, there won't be anything left to prove." "I know." Chen leaned back, her expression troubled. "That's why you need to stall him. Keep him thinking everything is normal while we work behind the scenes." How am I supposed to do that? His wife just ran away in the middle of the night with his secret phone. He's going to know something is wrong. Not if you give him a different crisis to deal with. Chen pulled out her own phone and made a call. "Hey, it's me. I need a favor. Big one." She spent the next few minutes talking in low tones, nodding occasionally. When she hung up, she had a slight smile on her face. "What?" I asked. "I have a friend in the FBI who specializes in fraud cases. What Garrett is doing, the systematic manipulation, the potential financial exploitation of vulnerable women that could fall under federal jurisdiction if we frame it right. But you said building a case takes time." "It does. But opening an investigation? That can happen fast, especially if we have probable cause and multiple victims willing to testify. My friend can have paperwork filed by this afternoon. Once there's an active federal investigation, Garrett will be too busy covering his ass to come after you or Lauren. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in hours. What do you need from me? Everything you have. And I need you to find the other women on that list. Get them to talk. Get them to go on record. The more voices we have, the stronger the case. I looked down at the spreadsheet on my laptop screen. 12 names. 12 women whose lives had been systematically dismantled by the man I'd once loved. The man I'd promised to honor and cherish until death do us part. I'll find them, I said. All of them. Chen stood up, dropping a business card on the table. Call me every day. Update me on everything. And Diane? Watch your back. Men like Garrett don't like losing control. When he realizes what's happening, he's going to get desperate. After she left, I sat in the booth as the morning rush began to fill the Denny's around me. Families, construction workers, night shift employees grabbing breakfast before heading home. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that in a corner booth, a war had just been declared. I opened the spreadsheet again and started with name number 1. Patricia Morrison, aged 42, attorney. According to Garrett's notes, she'd been his target 7 years ago before he even met me. The note said she'd moved to Seattle after their relationship ended. A quick online search found her LinkedIn profile. She was a partner at a small firm now, specializing in family law. Her photo showed a composed woman with prematurely gray hair and wary eyes. I sent her a carefully worded message through LinkedIn. My name is Diane Mercer. I was married to Garrett Thorne. I know what he did to you. You're not alone anymore. Please contact me if you're willing to talk. Then I moved to name number 2, and number 3, and number 4. By the time I left Denny's at 10 a.m., I'd contacted 9 of the 12 women. The other 3 had no digital footprint I could find. But Chen had promised to help track them down through official channels. As I walked to my car, my phone, the new burner phone I'd bought from a convenience store, buzzed with its first response. This is Patricia Morrison. I can't believe someone finally listened. When can we meet? I smiled, feeling the first stirrings of something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Power. Tomorrow, I typed back. And bring any evidence you kept. We're going to bury him. The drive back to my penthouse took me through morning traffic, but I barely noticed the congestion. My mind was already working through strategies, building a timeline, identifying weaknesses in Garrett's defenses. He'd spent years studying manipulation, but I'd spent 3 years studying him. As I pulled into my building's parking garage, I noticed a familiar car in a visitor's spot. A silver Audi A8, Garrett's car. My heart rate spiked, adrenaline flooding my system. I parked in my assigned spot and sat for a moment, forcing myself to breathe slowly. He couldn't get up to my apartment without being announced by the doorman. I was safe, but his presence here now meant he already knew something was wrong. I texted Chen. Garrett is at my building. Don't know if he knows I'm here. Her response came immediately. Do not engage. Go straight to your apartment. I'm sending a patrol car to watch the building. I grabbed my laptop bag and headed for the elevator, keeping my head down. Through the glass doors leading to the lobby, I could see Garrett standing at the reception desk, his back to me. He was wearing his expensive suit, the charcoal gray one he always wore to important meetings. His posture was relaxed, confident. He was smiling at the doorman. I made it to the elevator and pressed the button for the 23rd floor. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Garrett turning, his eyes scanning the garage. For a moment, our eyes met through the closing gap. His smile never wavered, but something in his expression shifted. Recognition, calculation, and something else, anticipation. The elevator rose, and I leaned against the wall, my hands shaking. 3 years of separation, 3 years of therapy and healing, and he could still trigger that fear response with just a look. But this time was different. This time I had evidence. This time I had allies. This time I had other victims who were ready to speak. This time I was going to win. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Diane. This is Lauren. Safe at my sister's place. Thank you again. Has he contacted you? I typed back. He's at my building right now. Trying to get up to my apartment. 3 dots appeared, then, be careful. When I left the house this morning, I heard him on the phone with someone. He said it's time to activate the contingency plan. I don't know what that means, but it scared me. Contingency plan. Of course, Garrett had a contingency plan. He had plans for everything. Backup strategies, fail-safes. That's what made him so dangerous. He was always 3 steps ahead, always prepared for any eventuality. But he hadn't prepared for this. He hadn't prepared for his victims to unite, to compare notes, to realize they weren't isolated incidents but part of a pattern. I reached my apartment and locked the door behind me, engaging the deadbolt and security chain. Through my windows, LA sprawled beneath me, indifferent and eternal. Somewhere down there, Garrett was planning his next move. And somewhere else, 11 other women were receiving my messages, reading words that told them their nightmare had been real, their reality had been valid. I opened my laptop and began building a timeline. Every woman on Garrett's list mapped out chronologically, his methods, his patterns, his evolution as a predator. Because that's what he was, I realize now. Not just an abusive husband or a manipulative partner. A predator who had refined his techniques across multiple victims, documenting his methods like a scientist conducting experiments. My doorbell rang, making me jump. I checked the security camera and saw the doorman, Charlie, standing in the hallway. Ms. Mercer? I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's a gentleman downstairs who insists he needs to speak with you. Says it's an emergency regarding your shared property from the divorce. He's been quite persistent. Tell him I'm not here, I said through the intercom. And Charlie? Don't let him up under any circumstances. He's no longer welcome in this building. Understood, ma'am. I apologize for the intrusion. I watched through the camera as Charlie walked away. Then I pulled up the building's lobby camera feed, a perk of sitting on the building's board. Garrett was still there, now sitting in one of the leather chairs near the windows. He wasn't leaving. He was waiting. My phone rang. Garrett's number. I let it go to voicemail. Immediately, another call. Same number. Then another. On the 4th call, I answered. What do you want, Garrett? Diane. His voice was smooth, concerned, that same tone he'd used during our marriage when he was setting me up for a fall. I've been worried about you. Lauren called me this morning, very upset. She said you contacted her in the middle of the night, saying some disturbing things about me. I think we need to talk about this. The lie was delivered so smoothly, so convincingly. If I didn't know better, if I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, I might have believed him. Really? I said flatly. Lauren called you. Yes, she's very concerned about you. She thinks you might be having an episode. Like before. The implication was clear, like during our marriage, when I'd been unstable, when I'd needed help. Let me be very clear, Garrett. I'm not playing this game anymore. I know what you are. I know what you've done. And I have proof. The silence on the other end lasted exactly 3 seconds. When he spoke again, the smooth concern was gone, replaced by something colder. Proof of what exactly? You tell me. You're the one who keeps such detailed records. Another pause. I could practically hear him recalculating, adjusting his strategy in real time. I think you should know that I've filed a restraining order, he said. After Lauren told me about your erratic contact, about your apparent fixation on me 3 years after our divorce, I felt I had no choice. My attorney will be serving you the papers this afternoon. Is that your contingency plan? I asked. Paint me as a stalker? Make it look like I'm harassing your new wife? This time the silence lasted longer. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You always know. That's your whole thing, Garrett. You're always 3 steps ahead. But this time you missed something. You got sloppy. Diane, I really think you need to... I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From rage. From 3 years of pent-up anger finally finding a target. He was already trying to flip the script, to make me the villain in his narrative. But this time, he didn't control the narrative. A text from Detective Chen. Patrol car is posted outside your building. Garrett just left. He looked pissed. What happened? I called her and relayed the conversation. He's claiming Lauren called him. That I'm stalking him. He's filing for a restraining order. Let him try, Chen said. His wife is at her sister's place, terrified to go home. We have recordings of his voice on that phone. We have documentation of his systematic abuse. Any judge who sees that evidence will laugh his restraining order out of court. He's going to come after me harder now, I said. He knows I'm a threat. Good. Let him make mistakes. The angrier he gets, the sloppier he'll become. And Diane? I got responses from 2 more names on that list. They're willing to talk. One of them kept a diary. Detailed entries about what he did to her. I felt a surge of hope. That's evidence of pattern. Exactly. Keep reaching out to the others. I'm meeting with the FBI contact tomorrow. If we can get at least 5 women to go on record, we can make this stick. After we hung up, I returned to my laptop and found 3 new messages from women on the list. Patricia Morrison had sent a detailed account of her relationship with Garrett, including dates, incidents, and copies of therapy records showing the PTSD diagnosis she'd received after they broke up. Another woman, Jennifer Lau, had sent photos of pages from Garrett's journal, different pages than Lauren had found, but with the same clinical notations about manipulation tactics and psychological pressure points. A third woman, whose name was listed as Rebecca Tate, sent simply, I have recordings. He didn't know I recorded our fights. When can we meet? I set up a secure group chat, inviting each woman who'd responded. Within an hour, 7 of the 12 were in the chat, sharing stories, comparing experiences, realizing that the phrases Garrett had used on them were identical across years and relationships. He told me I was too sensitive, one wrote. He said that to me too, another responded, word for word. He told me my memory couldn't be trusted because of my anxiety, a third added. The chat exploded with similar revelations. The same phrases, the same tactics, the same progression from charm to concern to control. It was like reading a script that Garrett had performed 12 times with different actresses. We need to meet in person, I typed. All of us together. We need to coordinate our stories, share our evidence, and plan our approach. Detective Chen is working on building a case, but we need to be united. Patricia Morrison responded first. I can fly down from Seattle this weekend. I've been waiting 7 years for this. One by one, they agreed. By the end of the hour, we had a meeting scheduled for Saturday afternoon at a private conference room I'd rented in a downtown office building. 7 women, spanning 7 years of Garrett's predatory behavior, coming together for the first time. I was about to close my laptop when a new message popped up in the chat from a name I didn't recognize. This is Marcus Chen, Detective Sarah Chen's partner. She asked me to monitor this chat for security purposes. Just want you all to know that we're taking this seriously. We're going to get this bastard. The simple declaration, the acknowledgement that someone in authority believed in us, sent a wave of emotion through me. For 3 years, I'd been told I was wrong, unstable, vindictive. And now, finally, people were listening. My phone rang again. Not Garrett this time, but Lauren. He knows, she said without preamble, her voice tight with fear. He figured out I have his phone. He just sent me a text from his regular phone, saying if I don't return his property by midnight tonight, he'll have no choice but to report it stolen and press charges. He's bluffing, I said, though my heart was racing. He can't report that phone stolen without explaining what's on it. You don't understand, Lauren said. He has something on me. Photos from before we were married, from a time in my life I'm not proud of. Nothing illegal, but embarrassing, humiliating. He's threatened to send them to my employer, my family, everyone I know if I don't comply. Of course he did. Of course Garrett had insurance policies on all of us. That's what the recordings were, what the documentation was. Not just evidence of his control, but leverage to maintain it. Don't give him the phone, I said firmly. Whatever he has on you, it's not worth it. We have him on systematic abuse, psychological torture, possibly fraud. Some embarrassing photos won't matter once all of this comes out. Easy for you to say. Lauren shot back, then immediately apologized. I'm sorry. I'm just scared. You don't know what he's capable of. Actually, I said quietly, I know exactly what he's capable of. I lived with him for 10 years. But Lauren, I also know that if you give him that phone back, we lose everything. All the evidence, all the proof. And he'll make sure we can never expose him again. I heard her breathing on the other end, ragged and uneven. What if he follows through? What if he destroys my life? He's already destroyed your life, I said. That's what he does. The question is whether you want to give him the power to keep doing it, or whether you want to fight back. Long silence. Then, okay. I won't give it back. But Diane, if this goes wrong, it won't, I interrupted, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. Trust me, we're going to end this. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my apartment, watching the city lights blink on below. Somewhere out there, Garrett was planning his next move. And somewhere else, 11 women were preparing to tell their truths. The war had begun. My laptop pinged with another message in the group chat. This one from a woman who hadn't spoken yet, name listed as Michelle Torres. I'm number 3 on his list. I didn't think anyone would ever believe me. He destroyed my career, my reputation, my mental health. But I kept everything. Every text, every email, every voicemail where he pretended to be concerned while systematically isolating me from everyone I loved. I'm ready to testify. I'm ready to watch him burn. Her message was followed by a flood of similar declarations. These women weren't victims anymore. They were warriors, and Garrett had given them their battle cry by documenting his own crimes. I pulled up Garrett's spreadsheet again, studying his notes about each woman. He'd been so confident in his methodology, so sure that his victims would never compare notes, never unite, never find the courage to speak up. He'd built his entire strategy on isolation and doubt, but he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated us. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Chen. Just got word from the FBI. They're expediting the investigation based on the preliminary evidence. Garrett's going to be contacted for questioning by Monday. Whatever you're planning, make it happen fast. Once he knows there's an active investigation, he's going to lawyer up and shut down. Monday. That gave us 4 days. 4 days to gather every piece of evidence, coordinate every testimony, build an airtight case that Garrett's expensive lawyers couldn't dismantle. I typed a message to the group chat. We meet Saturday at 2 p.m. Come prepared with everything you have. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. We're going to build a timeline that shows exactly what he is and what he's done. And then we're going to make sure he never does it to anyone else. The responses came quickly, each woman confirming her attendance. 7 women who'd been broken by the same man, now coming together to ensure his downfall. It was poetic, in a dark way. Garrett had always believed he was the smartest person in the room, the master manipulator who could control any situation. He was about to learn that the most dangerous thing you can do to a group of intelligent women is give them a common enemy. I spent the rest of the evening organizing files, creating folders for each woman's evidence, building a master timeline that tracked Garrett's methods across years. Patterns emerged quickly. He targeted successful women in their late 20s to early 40s. He always began with charm and attentiveness. He always isolated them from support systems within the first 6 months. He always kept meticulous records, and he always had a contingency plan. That last point worried me. Garrett was predictable in his methods, but creative in his defenses. If he felt cornered, if he realized the scope of what we were building against him, what would he do? My phone rang at 11 p.m., unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Is this Diane Mercer? A woman's voice, older, strained. Yes. Who is this? My name is Catherine Wolfe. I'm number 4 on Garrett's list. I heard from the others that you're organizing something. A meeting? Yes, I said carefully. Saturday afternoon. Can you make it? I need to tell you something first, Catherine said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Something the others don't know. Something I've never told anyone. I sat up straighter, my journalist instincts kicking in. I'm listening. When Garrett and I were together 6 years ago, I got pregnant. I was happy about it, stupid as that sounds now. But he wasn't. He said a baby would ruin everything, that I wasn't mentally stable enough to be a mother. He convinced me to terminate the pregnancy, said it was for my own good. I felt my stomach turn. Catherine, I'm so sorry. Wait, she said. That's not the worst part. After I had the procedure, I started having complications. Serious ones. When I went back to the doctor, they found evidence that someone had tampered with my medication. The pills I'd been taking for recovery had been replaced with something else. Something that caused internal damage. My blood ran cold. You think Garrett— I know Garrett did it, Catherine interrupted. I found the empty bottles in his apartment later, when I was packing my things to leave. The real medication unused. He'd switched them out. And when I confronted him about it, he told me I was having another breakdown, that I was imagining things. He had me so turned around I actually started to believe him. Did you report this? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I tried. But he had our couples therapist write a letter saying I was delusional, suffering from post-procedure depression, and my doctor said there was no way to prove the medication had been tampered with because I'd thrown away the bottles by then. Garrett made sure of that. He volunteered to help me clean up my apartment, said he was worried about me. He threw away the evidence himself. I was gripping the phone so hard my knuckles had turned white. This wasn't just emotional abuse. This was assault. This was possibly attempted murder. Catherine, I said slowly, do you still have medical records from that time? Documentation of the complications? Yes, everything. I kept it all, hoping someday someone would believe me. Bring it on Saturday. All of it. This changes everything. After she hung up, I immediately called Detective Chen, not caring that it was nearly midnight. This better be good, she answered, her voice heavy with sleep. I told her everything Catherine had said. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Sarah? I'm here, she said, and I could hear the edge in her voice now, the cop who'd just realized a case had gone from bad to criminal. That's assault with intent to cause bodily harm. Possibly attempted murder if we can prove he knew what the medication would do. With medical records and the right expert testimony, we might be able to make it stick. But it's been 6 years, I said. Statute of limitations. Is 10 years for assault with serious bodily injury in California, Chen finished. We're still within the window, and if we can tie this to a pattern of behavior, show that this wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a systematic campaign of abuse across multiple victims, we can build a RICO case, RICO. Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, usually reserved for organized crime, but increasingly applied to patterns of criminal behavior across multiple victims. Can you actually do that? I asked. If we have enough evidence, yes. Garrett's been operating like a criminal enterprise. Systematic targeting, documented methods, multiple victims across state lines. With the FBI already interested and this new information, we might be able to make it stick. I heard rustling on her end, the sound of papers shuffling. I'm calling my FBI contact now. This can't wait until Monday. And Diane, get that medical documentation from Catherine ASAP. If Garrett realizes what we know, he's going to run. She hung up, and I sat in the darkness of my apartment, processing what I'd just learned. Garrett wasn't just a manipulative ex-husband. He wasn't just an emotional abuser. He was dangerous in ways I'd never fully understood. I thought about all the times during our marriage when I'd felt sick, when I'd had unexplained symptoms that doctors couldn't diagnose. Times when Garrett had been so attentive, bringing me medication, making me tea, caring for me with what I'd thought was genuine concern. Had he been poisoning me too? The thought sent me to my bathroom, where I pulled out my medical records from the last 2 years of our marriage. Unexplained dizzy spells, recurring stomach problems, memory issues that I'd attributed to stress. A miscarriage at 8 weeks that my doctor had said was just one of those things. I'd never questioned any of it. Never thought to look deeper, because Garrett had been there, supportive and concerned, encouraging me to see doctors, to try different medications, to trust that everything would be fine. With shaking hands, I scanned the medical records and sent them to Detective Chen with a message. "You need to see these. I think he did it to me too." Her response came within minutes. "Jesus Christ. Saving these now. Don't touch anything he might have given you. Medications, supplements, anything. If you still have any of it, bag it and label it. We'll need it tested." I went to my medicine cabinet, but of course there was nothing left from the marriage. I'd thrown everything out in a fit of cathartic rage the day the divorce was finalized. Every reminder of Garrett, every shared possession gone. Except, I went to my storage unit in the building's basement. In the back, behind boxes of old files and forgotten furniture, was a container I'd labeled "Divorce Evidence Do Not Open." Inside were items my lawyer had told me to keep, just in case Garrett tried to reopen the settlement. Copies of financial records, emails, text messages, and a bottle of supplements Garrett had bought me during our last year of marriage. He'd said they would help with my anxiety, improve my mental clarity. I'd taken them religiously for 6 months, right up until I'd moved out. I photographed the bottle from every angle, then carefully placed it in a Ziploc bag. The seal was broken, but there were still pills inside. If Garrett had tampered with these the way he'd tampered with Catherine's medication, there would be evidence. Back in my apartment, I sent photos of the bottle to Chen with the timestamps and dates I remembered taking them. Her response was immediate. "Don't touch those pills. I'm sending an officer to pick them up within the hour. This is now a criminal investigation." I sat down on my couch, my mind reeling. In less than 24 hours, everything had changed. What had started as Lauren finding a secret phone had evolved into a potential criminal conspiracy case, spanning multiple states and multiple victims. And at the center of it all was Garrett, the charming architect who'd swept me off my feet 10 years ago, who I'd trusted with my life, my health, my sanity, who might have actually tried to kill me. My doorbell rang, startling me out of my thoughts. I checked the security camera and saw a uniformed officer holding an evidence bag. "Ms. Mercer?" "Detective Chen sent me to collect some items." I handed over the bottle of supplements, watching as he carefully labeled and documented everything. "What happens now?" I asked. "This goes to the lab for analysis. If there's anything in these pills that shouldn't be there, we'll know within 48 hours. He paused, studying my face. "Detective Chen told me to tell you to be careful. She thinks your ex-husband might escalate if he realizes what's coming." After he left, I deadbolted the door and checked every window lock. My penthouse had always felt like a fortress, 23 floors above the city, secure and private. But now it felt exposed, vulnerable. I pulled up the building's security camera feeds on my laptop. Garrett's car was gone from the visitor parking, but that didn't mean he wasn't nearby. He could be watching from any number of places, waiting for an opportunity. My phone buzzed with a message from the group chat. Patricia Morrison had sent a long document, pages and pages detailing her relationship with Garrett, their breakup, and the aftermath. At the end, she'd added, "I should mention that after I left Garrett, I had a complete physical for insurance purposes. The doctor found trace amounts of benzodiazepines in my system, even though I'd never been prescribed them. I thought maybe I'd been drugged at a bar or something, but now I wonder if Garrett had been slipping me anxiety medication to keep me compliant." "I still have the lab results." Another woman, Jennifer, responded immediately. "Oh my God, I had the same thing. Random drug test at work came back positive for substances I'd never taken. I almost lost my job. I thought someone had spiked my drink at a party, but..." The chat exploded with similar stories. Women finding unexplained medications in their system. Women having memory problems, dizzy spells, unexplained illnesses. All of them had attributed it to stress, to their own mental health issues, to anything but the obvious answer. Garrett had been drugging us, systematically. To keep us confused, compliant, easy to manipulate. I felt bile rise in my throat. This wasn't just emotional abuse. This was chemical warfare waged against women who trusted him, who loved him, who invited him into the most intimate parts of their lives. Everyone. I typed into the chat, my fingers flying across the keyboard. If you had any unexplained medical issues during your relationship with Garrett, get your medical records. Blood tests, drug screens, anything showing substances you didn't take. Detective Chen needs to see all of it. Within minutes, women were sharing stories of mysterious illnesses, doctors who couldn't explain their symptoms, medications that made things worse instead of better. And in every case, Garrett had been there, supportive and concerned, helping them manage their medication, bringing them pills, making sure they stayed on their prescribed regimens. Except the pills hadn't been what they seemed. My phone rang. "Detective Chen, I've been reading the group chat," she said without preamble. "This is bigger than I thought. We're not talking about one or two incidents. We're talking about systematic drugging of multiple women across multiple years. Can you prove it?" I asked. "With the medical records they're describing?" "Maybe. If we can get those supplements you gave me tested and they show evidence of tampering, we can build a pattern. But Diane, I need you to understand something. If Garrett realizes we're onto this, if he knows about the medical evidence, he's going to disappear. Men like him always have an exit strategy." "Then we don't give him time to use it," I said. "The meeting is Saturday. We'll have everything compiled by Sunday morning. How fast can you move after that? If the evidence is as strong as I think it is, I can have warrants by Monday afternoon. But you need to keep him distracted until then. Keep him focused on you, on the restraining order, on anything but the fact that we're building a criminal case." I thought about Garrett's text earlier, about his threat to file a restraining order against me. What if I give him what he wants? What if I make him think he's winning? What do you mean? He thinks I'm obsessed with him, that I can't let go. What if I play into that? Send him some emotional texts. Make it look like I'm falling apart? Give him what he expects to see? Chen was quiet for a moment. "That's risky. If he realizes you're faking, he'll know something is up. But if he doesn't realize it, he'll be so focused on managing me that he won't notice what's happening behind the scenes. And it gives him a false sense of security. He'll think his contingency plan is working." "All right," Chen said finally. "But be careful. Don't meet with him in person. Don't go anywhere alone, and keep me updated on everything." After we hung up, I stared at my phone for a long moment, psyching myself up for what I was about to do. Then I opened a text to Garrett and began to type. "I'm sorry about earlier. You're right, I shouldn't have contacted Lauren. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess seeing you today just brought back a lot of feelings. I know I need to move on. Can we talk?" I read it 3 times, making sure it hit the right notes of vulnerability and neediness. Then I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came within seconds. "I'm glad you're seeing reason. I've always cared about you, Diane, even after everything. But you need to understand that these false accusations have to stop. Lauren is very upset." I forced myself to type back. "I know. I'll apologize to her. I just miss how things used to be between us." Before everything got so complicated, another quick response. "We all have regrets. But moving forward means letting go of the past. I think it would be good for both of us if we maintain distance for a while. Give you time to heal properly." He was already trying to isolate me again, to push me away while maintaining the moral high ground. "Classic Garrett. You're probably right," I typed. "I'm sorry for bothering you." "No need to apologize. I just want you to be well. Take care of yourself, Diane." I set down the phone, feeling dirty. Playing into his manipulations, even strategically, felt like betraying myself. But it was necessary. Every hour Garrett spent thinking he'd won was another hour we had to build our case. The group chat had continued to explode with revelations. More women sharing medical records. More stories of mysterious illnesses and unexplained symptoms. Catherine had sent scanned copies of her medical records from 6 years ago, showing the complications from the tampered medication. I also found something else, Catherine wrote. A prescription bottle with Garrett's fingerprints on it. I kept it because I couldn't understand why his prints would be on my medication. Now I know, evidence. Real, physical, testable evidence. With fingerprints. I forwarded everything to Detective Chen, watching as the case against Garrett grew from emotional abuse to something far more sinister. This wasn't just about ruined relationships or damaged mental health anymore. This was about deliberate, systematic poisoning of women across multiple states over multiple years. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with one final message from the group chat. It was from one of the names who hadn't responded yet, a woman listed as Amanda Price. I'm number 11 on his list. I didn't want to come forward because I thought no one would believe me. But I have to tell you something. After I left Garrett, I developed severe neurological problems. The doctors said it was consistent with long-term exposure to heavy metal poisoning. They never figured out how I was exposed. But I kept a hair sample from that time, preserved in a plastic bag. If you want to test it, it's yours. Let's end this, bastard. Heavy metal poisoning. The worst possible escalation of an already horrifying pattern. I sent the message to Chen with 3 words. We've got him. Her response came immediately. Monday morning, we're taking him down. But Diane, be ready for fallout. Men like Garrett don't go quietly. When he realizes what's coming, he's going to lash out. I looked out at the city lights, thinking about the man I'd once loved, the man I'd promised to spend my life with. Somewhere out there, he was sleeping peacefully, confident in his control, assured of his superiority. He had no idea that 12 women he'd tried to destroy were coming together to end him. That his meticulous documentation of his crimes would become the evidence of his downfall. That his contingency plans were useless against victims who refused to stay silent. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. Saturday arrived with crystalline clarity. I woke at dawn, my mind sharp and focused. Detective Chen's text came at 6 a.m. Lab results confirmed. Benzodiazepines in your supplements, arsenic in Amanda's hair. We have him. Meeting at 2 p.m. before we execute warrants. The conference room I'd rented downtown filled quickly. 7 women arrived between 1:30 and 2 p.m., each carrying boxes of evidence, medical records, recordings, journals, photographs. Patricia from Seattle, Jennifer from San Francisco, Catherine from San Diego, Rebecca from Arizona, Michelle with her banker's box of financial records, Amanda with her preserved hair sample, and Lauren, still shaking but determined. We sat in a circle, and for the first time, I saw our collective strength. 7 women, spanning 7 years, all marked by the same predator. I want to start by saying thank you, I began. For 3 years, I thought I was alone. That maybe I really had been unstable. Now I know the truth, and so do you. One by one, they shared their stories. Patricia described how Garrett had destroyed her law career, isolating her from partners until she believed herself incompetent. Jennifer revealed how he'd sabotaged her job interviews with anonymous emails. Catherine's voice broke as she explained the pregnancy, the tampered medication, the permanent damage that left her unable to have children. Rebecca spoke of stolen work, of story ideas published under his name. Michelle detailed financial ruin, investments made in her name that drained her savings. Amanda described neurological symptoms that had nearly killed her, caused by systematic arsenic poisoning. Lauren, the youngest, cried as she realized she'd escaped the fate we'd all suffered. When I shared my story, the decade of gaslighting, the drugs, the miscarriage I now suspected wasn't natural, the room fell silent with shared recognition. We weren't separate victims. We were parts of a pattern, a methodology Garrett had refined across years. Detective Chen has warrants ready for tomorrow morning, I said, pulling out my laptop. But we need to coordinate. Once he's arrested, we go public, all of us together. We show the pattern, make it impossible for him to manipulate the narrative. Rebecca, the journalist, leaned forward. I have contacts at major outlets. We can make this national news. Not just about Garrett, but about systematic abuse and how the legal system fails women. Patricia nodded. I'll file civil suits. Class action plus individual claims. We bankrupt him legally. Michelle added, I'll hit his business connections. By the time he makes bail, his firm will be destroyed. Jennifer, the software engineer, had been typing on her laptop. I found something. Garrett has encrypted cloud storage, secure vault. Automated uploads every night, mostly video files. He's been recording everything for years. The implications hit us simultaneously. Private moments, intimate conversations, bedroom activities, all documented without consent. Can you lock him out? I asked. Already doing it, Jennifer replied, fingers flying across her keyboard. Changing every password. He'll be locked out of his entire digital life in about... Done. My phone buzzed. Detective Chen, change of plans. Garrett's packing a bag, checking flights. He's running. Moving arrest to tonight, 11 p.m. I read the message aloud. Lauren paled. He knows somehow, Jennifer swore. He just tried logging into everything. He knows he's locked out. He's panicking. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Detective Chen's voice was tight with adrenaline. Subject in custody. He was literally walking out the door with $200,000 cash, fake passport, and burner phones. Resisted arrest. Added charges. We got him. The room erupted. Tears, embraces, disbelieving laughter. Years of pain and doubt releasing in one cathartic moment. Catherine sobbed openly. Patricia sat with her head in her hands, shoulders shaking with relief. But I knew this was just the beginning. The trial lasted 6 weeks. All 12 of us testified. The final 5 women came forward after seeing the news coverage. We sat in the front row every day, a united wall of survivors. Garrett, once so confident and controlling, shrank before us in his orange jumpsuit. The evidence was overwhelming. Medical experts testified about the drugs found in our systems. Digital forensics revealed hundreds of illegal recordings. His journals documented his experiments in chilling detail. Most damning was the manuscript he'd been writing, The Art of Psychological Control, a how-to guide for manipulating intimate partners. His lawyers claimed conspiracy, vindictive exes coordinating false accusations. But 12 women with identical stories across 7 years, backed by medical evidence and his own documentation, were impossible to refute. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on 23 counts: poisoning, illegal surveillance, fraud, attempted flight, and conspiracy to commit assault. At sentencing, the judge, a woman in her 60s, looked down at Garrett with pure contempt. In 30 years on the bench, I've never seen such calculated cruelty. You didn't just abuse these women, you studied them, documented their destruction, and planned to profit from their pain. You are a danger to society. 25 years in state prison. No parole for 15 years. As guards led him away, Garrett turned back one final time. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I smiled, not with anger or triumph, but with peace. The peace of someone who'd reclaimed her reality. 6 months later, I stood in that same conference room with all 12 women. This time champagne replaced coffee. The civil suits had settled, $50 million divided among us. More importantly, Rebecca's investigative series had sparked national conversation. 6 states had passed new laws addressing psychological abuse and coercive control. To us, Patricia said, raising her glass, to surviving, to speaking up, to winning, to us, we echoed. Lauren, now in law school specializing in domestic violence law, smiled through tears. I still can't believe it's real. It's real, I said, looking around at these extraordinary women. And we did it together. We'd turned our pain into purpose, our trauma into testimony, our silence into a roar that had brought down a predator and changed laws. Garrett had spent years studying how to break women. We'd spent 6 months showing him how unbreakable we truly were. That night, alone in my penthouse, I opened my laptop one final time to the folder containing all the evidence. Then I closed it, backed it up to a secure drive, and filed it away. The war was over. We had won. And finally, after 3 years of doubt, I knew with absolute certainty I had never been unstable. I had never been the problem. I had been right all along. That truth was worth everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.